Wow. With an English name, you might think this would be easy, speaking for all of you in English. But to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous right now. But hey, we have been climbing the Kilimanjaro together, right? So why would I be nervous? But let's start with this. Frank, can you tell us something more about the mountain?
Yeah, the mountain, it's there, it's huge, it's about 6 kilometers high. So climbing a mountain like the Kilimanjaro basically implies two challenges. The first one is really the height. Above 5,000 meters, there's 50% of oxygen. So that's, for everybody, it's a tough challenge. And you don't know how your body will react when you're there. It can be good or it can be bad. But it will affect anybody. And the second challenge basically is the unpredictability of the weather. So you go there and you climb through 5 climate zones. So you start at plus 30 degrees, tropical temperatures, and then you end up at minus 20, very cold, and then you have to go down again. So that's basically the challenge. I would say that without any full engagement of the climbers and the, I would say the guides as well, it's impossible to do this. So full engagement is necessary. And it's really like life. You know, if you implement a multifaceted HR implementation, or you do build a business that needs to be sustainable, it's a challenge. So it's very comparable.
Yeah. From that on, I remember the first day of the climb, and I was asking myself, am I fully prepared to make it to the summit? And then we had that little conversation on the first day where you asked me a question. Do you remember?
Yes, I asked you, what is our purpose? Why are we doing this, right?
Yeah, it was. And it was so clear for me, reaching the summit, of course. But then you asked me a terrific question, like, is it? Or is it more important to be safely and healthy back down on day 7? And that moment I realized and put the whole journey in another perspective. Like, not only focus on the result, but also enjoy the journey. It was an amazing experience.
And then you have to sort of prepare. It's a 6-month preparation. And then you have to collect sponsor money for War Child, because otherwise you cannot even climb. So how did it go with your preparation plan?
Wow. Lots of stress. Work, training hours, earning money for War Child. So looking back right now, and that's one thing when you learn lessons, is that I didn't enjoy that part. I didn't enjoy the part of preparation. So it gave me a lot of stress, but hey, there was a lesson learned looking back right now.
Any other lessons you picked up on that climb?
Yeah, I think this could be tweetable. Let's call it 10 seconds of boldness. And let me give an example. We were earning money for War Child, and on one day I had an idea like, let's ask a Dutch leadership guru if he wants to do something for us. And he said, yes, of course, I will do it pro bono. Okay, wow. So we made an event. We sold more than 300 tickets, and we earned more than 15,000 euros. Only within one event. Everything for War Child. So the first day I thought I wouldn't ask him. There was something like a no. But on that moment, that 10 seconds of courage, make the impossible more likely to happen. So, yeah, that was a great lesson learned.
Boldness. And it put you on the map because you could start, right? You had your sponsor money in and you were ready to go.
We were ready to go,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, what about you? Any leadership lessons learned?
Well, there's a few lessons, but what struck me most is the power to influence. If you climb a mountain, it's going to be tough for everyone, right? And so the guides are there really to influence you and help you through those tough moments. So any guide that doesn't have the ability to influence cannot exercise any leadership. So that was a very powerful lesson for me to see how they really work with people to get there. And there was also a second lesson, because every 30 minutes there is going to be a change on a mountain, whether it be fierce wind or incredibly cold temperatures or people with altitude sickness that really gets you. There will be change constantly. So you have to be able to manage that change. You have to be able to really, cope with that and put it into perspective. And I think that was a very tough time to see all these changes happening, but the ability to cope with that was key.
Yeah, I can recall that one. And what happened then?
Well, what happened is that, of course, a guide cannot always, be there with you when something happens that attacks you. So what they teach you is principles. So you know how to act when something comes up. And one of the principles that they taught, for example, was after 5,000 meters, when it really gets tough, and you're in the dark, you're disoriented, you see the sky full of stars, you see the summit, but you don't know where you are, because again, 50% of oxygen sort of hits you hard, then the advice is not to look at the clock or at your altitude meter. If you do, you're screwed, because you still have 8 hours to climb, you can hardly breathe, and you still have to continue going. So the principle there was, don't do these things and you'll be fine. And I guess that worked for most.
It sounds pretty directive leadership, right? What about humility in that part of leadership?
Interesting one. I think on that climb were several managers and leaders. And as leaders, you're not used to follow, right? We always, basically lead. But if you really are a true leader, then you can also follow. You have to engage in the advice of the expert. And if you do that, you can be successful. And only if you're able to sort of follow that leadership. It's called level 5 leadership in literature. It's the highest level of leadership. Humility and will. I think that's a very good recipe for success. But engaging in that advice is tough because we're used to knowing it ourselves.
Yeah, to add that to that point, I remember the chief guide also telling us from the first day, I would only answer questions pertaining that day. Not about tomorrow, not about summit day, days with more tension on it, of course. She wouldn't answer. And I was thinking, why you wouldn't? But also looking back, a fantastic insight gave me about it's not in leadership necessary to overload your people with a tsunami of information or a point in the future. But of course, have a purpose, have a common goal, but take the steps day by day, right now, in the moment. So I believe having a purpose, a common goal, is necessary, but it's essential to make the steps day by day to reach that goal.
And then you still have tough moments, right?
What
was one of your your toughest moments with us?
The climb was for 6 days, but on day three, that was the toughest moment for me as well. It was the first day we became above 4,500 meters, and a heavy headache kicked in. I was thinking, what the hell am I doing over here? What is this mountain, man? Come on. Yeah. Didn't want to eat, but I have to keep going on and on. And that made me realize I was doing it for Warchild and with a group of fantastic people, and it was a team effort. So on that moment, people helped me get through, and the porters and the guides, but it was hard for me at that moment. So that was my toughest point, but I'm pretty curious about Frank's, right? So tell us, Frank, what made you cry?
Well, I didn't quite cry, but I was close to that. I think a few hundred meters, of course, I did not look at my altitude meter, so I don't know how high we were, but I had an extremely tough time. I felt that I was about to collapse at some point, and I climbed the night through. It was, I think, 7 a.m., and there's a rule on a mountain. When a porter asks you to carry your backpack, you can decline once. You decline once, but if he asks you twice, you give it away because you're in danger. So this guy, at some point, he asked me twice, Frank, I should carry your bag. And I go, crap, there's some, and I was wavering. So I handed my bag, and he carried it, and I think 2 hours later, we were at the summit. The point I want to make here is that the guide knew exactly when to intervene, right? He did not do it too early. If he would, I would have felt a non-contributor. I would have felt that I didn't do it myself. If he would have done it too late, I would be in trouble. So at the right time, he basically asked that second question to carry it. And that, I think, helped me to the summit. And I think that's a great leadership lesson as well, that if you are prepared to give that away, to really sort of do that, then the best leadership is performed. Then people say we did it ourselves, right? That's when the best leadership is taking place. People say we did it ourselves, even with your help. And we did it ourselves, Glenn, didn't we? We did it ourselves. Good job, man. Thanks.